Welcome. This video is documenting the prediction that there will be a 13% drop in one day in the stock market on July 2nd. It is predicted that on July 2nd, probably the NASDAQ index, or maybe the NASDAQ and another index or something, one of the indexes, probably the NASDAQ, will lose 13% in one day on July 2nd, 2026. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email. As we can see here, this was recorded or composed on July 23rd. This is 8 days before July 2nd, or nine days actually. Okay, if you are skeptical for some reason, email me and I'll forward this to you. But we can clearly see this is being documented ahead of time. Furthermore, this prediction, or rather this knowledge that there will be a day on which the stock market will lose 13%, has been known for a number of months. Okay? Now, also, in this particular video, we'll also explain how God has combined these prophetic signs that I'll be talking about to also point to the day it is predicted that Pope Francis will be resurrected from the dead by aliens, which are in fact demons pretending to be aliens, and so Pope Francis will be resurrected through demonic power on May 2nd, 2029. All right, now, so to predict, I'm also predicting, incidentally, that we are in the beginning stages of the biggest stock market crash in all of history. Okay, as of today, June 23rd, the market is still near its all-time highs. All right, it's just a couple hundred points down. It's nothing. It's at the peak still, essentially. In fact, the all-time peak high in the Dow was made just a couple of days ago. All right, so if you're watching this video in a month from now, it becomes apparent that we are in a big stock market collapse and financial crisis. That's not the case at the timing of the recording of this video. So there are, of course, some people out there, very, very few, and they're generally not mainstream people, obviously, that are predicting a stock market crash right now. And then out of those numbers of people, which is small, there are, of course, some people as pessimistic as myself, which is that we are going to now experience the biggest crash in all of history. But they do exist. And so to claim such a thing isn't any kind of proof of anything, in a way. What I'm saying is that the peak is in right now. In the S&P 500, it was June 2nd. And God pointed to that day for the stock market peak on that day through what I will just touch on briefly in this video, which was the GameStop sign. So GameStop is the name of a company that is what is called a meme stock that's popular with trading. Anyway, God has been using this GameStop company to indicate the peak of the crash, or sorry, the peak of the all-time peak of the stock market, at least in the S&P 500 on June 2nd. Okay, so I'm not just predicting the biggest crash in all of history. I'm telling you the beginning point of it, which is what even the people that are predicting the biggest crash in all of history cannot do. All right, so, but in addition to that, I'm giving in this video, in this prediction, the precise date of a total of 13% stock market loss in one day on July 2nd. Okay? Obviously, to be able to do such a thing, to predict such a thing, means that there is a supernatural origin to this prediction, obviously, if you are a rational person. But of course, people aren't rational by nature. But not only am I saying that this is clear evidence of a supernatural, the ability to make this prediction, I'm saying that this prediction will prove the righteous Christian God of the Bible. Not any other God. Not the consciousness revolution God, or what you might call the New Age God, or new spirituality, or whatever, that has repackaged Eastern religion into a Western form, which says that God is an impersonal energy and is the universe itself, which is actually called pantheism technically, which is not what monotheism is, which is that God is not an impersonal being, but a personal being, and isn't the universe itself, but is the creator of the universe and is separate and outside of the universe, which is what the word holy means in Hebrew. Holy is a Hebrew word that means set apart, separate from, which is what God is from his creation. He isn't the creation itself. He isn't the universe, and not an impersonal energy or collective consciousness. And what I'm trying to make very clear is that how I know this prediction is not some sort of malarkey regarding collective consciousness, somehow tapping into the so-called collective consciousness, etc. That is not how this prediction is known ahead of time. And I know far better than you or anyone how this prediction is known. And furthermore, I know far better than you or anyone the purpose of this prediction. And it is not for you to go, oh, cool, neat. And that includes the quote-unquote Christian listening. That is not the purpose of this prediction. You could say, in a way, the primary purpose would be to prove that the righteous Christian God of the Bible is the true God. But then again, there is already an overwhelming amount of evidence for such a thing, for this truth. The purpose of this prediction that is from God is to prove the controversial things that I'll be saying in this video. And make no mistake, I know far better than you and anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction. I know more than you how it is or why it is that God has given me a voice through this prediction. And it is to prove these controversial things that I'll be saying, which are overwhelmingly proven to be the case through God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. And God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections will be proven to be true when this prediction comes to pass. And so therefore, I'll be proving these controversial things. Number one controversial thing is that the righteous Christian God of the Bible is the true God, not the God of Islam, and not the God of the New Age or the impersonal God of whatever, Christ consciousness, etc. Nonsense. Lies from Satan, to be more precise. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about here, let's get into it. Oh, and by the way, I'll say this too. It really doesn't require this because the prediction is so precise, a 13% drop in one day. That's all I need to say. I could shut off the video right now and, the prediction would prove everything that I've just said. But I'll be explaining these reasons for how this prediction is known ahead of time in this video. And as you will see clearly, that these reasons could not have been concocted in the imagination of a human being. It'll be obvious to anyone who has a modicum of rationality that this is from God. These reasons that I'll be explaining. It's very obvious. So we'll get into the reasons, and the reasons will prove everything that I'm saying, but it's actually, like I just said, not really that necessary because this particular prediction is so precise. But let's get into these fascinating reasons that are clearly from God. So what I'll be doing in this video is going through notes that were recorded as the insights came. A lot of it is a discussion between myself and another friend, and so everything is in notation form. There's no time to develop some kind of fluid write-up to explain all of everything. That's why I'm here. I'm going to explain these notes as we go. So first of all, we are focused right here in this video on June 22nd, the prophetic signs that occurred on June 22nd. First of all, we have the death of Clive Davis, arguably the biggest music producer of all time, producer of Pink Floyd, Santana, Janis Joplin, Sly and the Family Stone, Chicago, Luther Vandross, Billy Joel, Earth, Wind and Fire, Barry Manilow, Aerosmith, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, and much, much more. Including Simon and Garfunkel, for example. Okay. So he was born on the date 4/4 in 1932. And by the way, that's interesting because the 44th president, his name is Obama, which is equal to 32 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. He died at the age of 94. Okay, in Manhattan. Also, on this same day, Alan Greenspan died at the age of 100. Okay, we're going to get into we're going to explaining. So what I also meant to say is that because of this being formatted in notes in order of how the insights came, the explanation will build into a somewhat of a climax, if you will. Don't skip ahead. It'd be pointless because you'd be missing the background, which is necessary for understanding what's going on here. But what I'm saying is this video is going to get more and more progressively interesting. So Alan Greenspan also died on the same day. Now, also on this day, Lionel Messi, the Argentine soccer superstar, becomes the all-time World Cup scorer after scoring his 17th and 18th goals against Austria. Argentina, hence at Buenos Aires. Vast majority of Argentines live in Buenos Aires, which is where Pope Francis is from. Pope Francis is the first of the two antichrists. And that is the first example of the controversial things that I'll be saying, which will be proven to be a fact and indisputable, absolutely zero debate after the prediction comes to pass. And make no mistake, I know more than you the reason and purpose for this prediction. There is no debate. If you are a quote-unquote Christian and you are loving to play the Antichrist guessing game, you can stop. And that's the purpose of this video. It's to tell you to stop doing that. The identity of the Antichrist, especially the first one, was revealed 2,000 years ago, more, 2,500 years ago in the Old Testament. It was always going to be a pope. It's clear from Daniel chapter 9, for example, and Daniel chapter 8. Like, it's not just somewhat clear, it's crystal clear. It's shameful that the Protestant church has lost this knowledge. There wouldn't have been a Protestant Reformation without this knowledge that a pope would be the Antichrist. But that knowledge has been conveniently lost in the last few decades, just in time for the end times, so that the maximum number of people can be fooled. But this was common knowledge 50 years ago, that the Pope would be the Antichrist. Anyway, it's the case, all right? And there's no debate. Stop playing the Antichrist guessing game. I know you love to do it because of your false, heretical soteriology, your salvation doctrine that has you misinterpret 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 as the Holy Spirit. Okay? It's not the Holy Spirit. Paul was speaking cryptically to the Thessalonians, and he told them that they knew what he was talking about. So why would he do that? And why would he call what was holding back the Antichrist a he and a what? Why would he do that? It's not because it's the Holy Spirit. That's silly. No offense. That's silly. The reason why he did that, and the reason why he spoke cryptically, although at the same time telling them that they knew what he was talking about, is because he knew that anyone in possession of the letter would be in great danger in the Roman Empire. Because what he was speaking about as terms of the he and the what was the Roman Empire, the capital of the empire, Rome, being moved to Constantinople by Constantine, the he and the what. And once that occurred, it opened up the power vacuum for the bishops of Rome to rise in power. That prophecy's already been fulfilled. And so it was always going to be a pope, and this particular pope is the Pope, the Buenos Aires Pope. Okay? The story about the son of Liam Payne, this story about the son of Liam Payne also comes today. Liam Payne died in Buenos Aires in 2024, okay? Well, the date he died was the 188th semi-prime number of days before this date, before this story about his son. I have to be honest, I didn't even have time to read the story yet. This link was sent to me from my friend. And anyway, it does make sense that we would have a Buenos Aires sign like this on this day. I really need to read this article because it's a fall. And so this lines up with the crash, actually. If I'm not mistaken, the name of the band that Liam Payne was in is relevant. Hold on a second. Okay, so he was a member of One Direction. Okay, some band that I'm not familiar with. I'm too old, I suppose. So One Direction is the name of the band. This very, very famous singer fell from his hotel balcony or something like that in Buenos Aires in late 2024. And he went down in one direction. I mean, that's kind of fitting. I mean, what I mean is that it's the coincidence makes it a prophetic sign. So he fell, he crashed, he went down. It was one direction. Anyway, this is interesting because that's what's going on here. We're talking about all of this pointing to the direction of the stock market. Down, one direction, 13% in one day. So there's probably more details in this particular story. Why don't I just read it right now and get back to you here? Hold on. All right, so I just read the article for the first time. I had overlooked this. I didn't follow up on this. And I just also realized at the same time that I'm glad this happened this way because you got to see in real time how this works. Okay? We already knew based on everything else that all of this was pointing to a stock market crash. Then, as you saw, I forgot the name of the band that he was from. But I had an intuition there, as you heard. You heard me intuitively say, wait a second, I think he was involved with a band whose name would be relevant here. And sure enough, it was. Because he fell in one direction, all right, in Buenos Aires, on the same day as this Argentine goat God is using goats, greatest of all times, as symbolism for the Antichrist. The goat Antichrist on the Temple Mount from the Day of Atonement in the Jewish tradition, right? So that's why the greatest scorer of all time here from Buenos Aires, and the news story regarding the guy who fell in Buenos Aires from one direction, as in one direction down, fall. All right, so you got all that. That was intuitive in itself, figuring out that the name probably meant something and then proving that it did. Then, as you heard, I paused the video here to go read the article and figure out what's really going on here, because there's something more to this. There's obviously something in the details of the news story that would be relevant here. And sure enough, the story is about how the estate, the millions of dollars that the singer left behind to his son. And guess what his son's name is? Bear. B-E-A-R, as in the animal bear, which is the symbol for a stock market crash. If you don't know anything about anything, if you don't know the symbols for the stock market, you have the bulls and the bears. Bulls means the stock market, or the people are in sentiment-wise thinking the market will go up. Bears are the opposite. They're predicting the market will go down. So in terms of the market, there's bulls and bears, and there's bearishness and bullishness, but there's also bulls and bears. Like right beside Wall Street or the New York Stock Exchange is a giant statue of a bull, because obviously that's optimistic. They wouldn't want to have a giant statue of a bear. But that's what's by the way, the two Chicago teams, the sports teams, the Bulls and the Bears, because the Chicago is where commodities are exchanged. Okay, so the son's name is Bear, and he died the news is on the same day as the death of Alan Greenspan, who incidentally is the former Federal Reserve chairman. And by the way, I'm not at all surprised, as I even write here later in the email, that God was saving the timing of the death of Alan Greenspan to coincide just before the crash. Not a surprise at all. When I mean just before, I mean like this crash isn't just going to occur in one day, but I mean just before this predicted 13% crash in one day. So that's amazing. And you got to see that in real time, okay? And that sort of intuition, by the way, comes about through understanding how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. From years of studying it from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 8 years. But it's not just the dedication. It's the learning how it really works, you could say. Because there are many people that claim to be watchers, but the majority of these people are not actually watching, first of all. They're constantly trying to find some secret code in the Bible and attach it to some really, really well-known sign like the eclipse or the Revelation 12 sign in the sky. Or, they've got a handful of signs that they're aware of, when in actuality there's thousands of them that they are unaware of because they're not really watching. But also, what most people that claim to be watching that are maybe picking up on a few other signs than the mainstream majority of quote-unquote watchers that aren't watching, what they miss is that none of the prophetic signs can be properly or fully understood without their context and connections with the other prophetic signs. It's the same way with the Bible. The Bible is not a linear document. It can be traversed through in an infinite number of pathways. And the reason why the Bible is the miracle that it is because it's all interconnected. Well, that's the same with God's prophetic signs. None of them are properly or can be properly or fully understood without their context and connections to the other prophetic signs. And it is this big picture that allows us to perceive and understand God's big picture of signs, which is only being explained on this channel. And that's how, for example, my friend and I can look at July or June 22nd and come up with this astounding amount of information in a short period of time. I mean, there's so much understanding coming on a daily basis. It's like a fire hose, and it's not even possible to document it all in a video. I mean, unless at some point in the near future God stops and relaxes with his prophetic signs and allows us to get caught up, but there's just no way. And so what is really bothers me personally is knowing prophetic stuff and signs that no one else knows. I mean, that really, really bothers me, right? I do not want to be the only person to know these things. But it is what it is. So let's continue. Speaking of time and running out of it. So 188, because God uses this number frequently in his signs because of H188 in the Hebrew concordance, which is the word that means woe exclamation mark, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. And so we have the death of Liam Payne connecting with the woe exclamation mark to this story about his son named Bear. Why is that a woe? Because that's exactly how people will be reacting on July 2nd when the stock market loses 13% in one day. Oh, and incidentally, Pope Francis's number is 13. He was elected on the date 313 in the year 13. But the reason for that, well, there's two. First, Rome converted to Catholicism in the year 313 AD, which is why he was elected on the date 313. And the day that Rome converted to Catholicism was the worst thing that ever happened to Christianity. But in a way, it was the best thing because it forced the true Christians to the idea of bringing everyone in society into the fold, into the religion, was great. But God uses Satan and deception for his purposes, right? And so what it also ended up doing, besides at the same time fooling the majority with the wolf in sheep's clothing, it also produced a more vital, more real Christianity that was against the Catholic Church. It's a misnomer. It's a myth, by the way, that Catholic propagandists propagate, which is that there was at some point in history only the Catholic Church. There was never only the Catholic Church. There was always true Christians and Catholicism, and Catholics have always, throughout the centuries, been persecuting true Christians, including murdering them. That's why in the Bible, when it talks about in the book of Revelation, the woman drinking from the cup of blood, the golden cup of blood, it's a reference to Catholicism and how it has murdered throughout the centuries true Christians. Catholicism is not a legitimate denomination of Christianity. But let me say this, in case you are a Catholic and you're getting a little bit enraged at the moment. I'm not anti-Catholic at all. Well, no, I shouldn't say at all. I'm not anti-Catholic person. I'm anti-Catholicism. God absolutely hates Catholicism. But God doesn't hate Catholics. But if a Catholic is to be saved, and there will be many Catholics who will be saved, obviously, it'll be in spite of their Catholicism, not because of it. The truth is that when Catholicism converted in 313 AD, it didn't do away with its ancient pagan traditions and religion. It just repackaged them into a wrapper that made it look like Christianity, a wolf in sheep's clothing. For example, the worship of Mary is a carryover from the worship of the fertility goddess. And in all of the ancient artwork that predates Catholicism, you've got these images of the goddess with the baby in her arms. Like Ishtar, Aphrodite, Isis, etc. Peter referred to Rome in his writings in the Bible as Babylon. He was talking about Babylon. And the very last thing he's talking about in his letter is that's to Rome. He refers to it as Babylon. Babylon is a metaphor for pagan religion. It's the birthplace of pagan religion. Anyway, I could go on and on and on about the various things within Catholicism that are clear carryovers from pagan religion. And that's also why when they spread Catholicism to other parts of the world, they encouraged the local people to carry on their pagan ways, but repackage it into some form of thing that looked like Christianity. That's why in various parts of the world, you've got very strange things that so-called Catholics are doing that other Catholics in other parts of the world have no idea what they're talking about. It's because it's all their former pagan religion. That's the nature of Catholicism. And so is the worship of saints, which is really just worship of gods. And it's anyway, let's move on. We're getting way off subject here. Alan Greenspan, okay, Federal Reserve, market crash symbolism, obviously. So, and the Antichrist, Pope Francis, is described in the 13th chapter of the Bible. And the number 13 symbolizes the Antichrist in the Bible. Nimrod, a type for the Antichrist, was the 13th generation from Adam. And Haman, another type for the Antichrist, persecuted the Jews on the 13th days of the months. Alan Greenspan was the 13th Federal Reserve Chairman. Alan Greenspan is a Jew also, or was. Now, the record 6+6+6 goal for Messi against Austria hints at Hitler, a type for the Antichrist. All right, now, so what I'm about to read here was written in April of 2024. So this is just like background, but it's extremely interesting, which is why I'm going to read it in this video. It's going to take a little while, but it's worthwhile. You're going to be fascinated to hear some of the things here. In the Bible, a 40-year period is symbolic of God's judgment on a people. H226 in the Hebrew Concordance is the Hebrew word that means prophetic sign. 226 is the 76th semi-prime number, a number that is only divisible by two other prime numbers. On March 24, 2024, in March 24 in the year 76, was a military coup of the Argentinian government. Following the military takeover, the dictatorship is said to have murdered 30,000 people. This is the prophetic sign that points to the current coup in the US government by the left that is unfolding, and the coming genocide in America that will be perpetrated by the left, led by Obama. This is why Obama visited Argentina shortly before he left office on the exact 40th anniversary of the coup. 40 years, exactly. I mean, he didn't go on the 39th anniversary. He went on the 40th anniversary, all right? This is huge in the Bible, which was, again, when he was there, March 23rd to 24th, 2016. March 24th, 2016, the 40th anniversary of the coup, the 44th president visited a memorial for those who were killed in the mass murder of Argentina. And that's God speaking through metaphor, through signs, that this 44th president on the 40th anniversary will be the leader of a coup and mass murder. By the way, this isn't the only example of God communicating this. This is just one of many. So what I'm saying is that this is a controversial thing that will be proven to be true. It is a fact, even though it's still in the future, it's a fact. This is going to happen. There is coming a politicide led by the left and Obama in America. That's why, I'll repeat it, that's why God had the 44th anniversary at this memorial for those that were mass murdered in Argentina on the 40th anniversary, the 44th president. Now, in Bible prophecy, a period of 42 months is symbolic of the period of the Antichrist. As well, the number 42 always appears in the context of slaughter in the Bible. This is an interesting thing. There were the 42 that were killed at the pit by King Jehu, the 42 cities for manslaughter that one could take refuge in, the 42 that were slaughtered by the she-bear with Elisha, and on and on, okay? So in every instance, the number 42, and including in the book of Revelation with the Antichrist, it is in the context of slaughter. The 44th president's visit to the memorial of the slaughtered in Argentina on the 40th anniversary of the coup was exactly 420 weeks, which hints at the number 42, before the news broke of the death of O.J. Simpson. This email was composed on the day of Simpson's death, or rather just after it, but it was all about this 4/11 day, which was the news of his death. Now, what was O.J. Simpson known for? Okay, so Simpson was known for getting away with murder, just like Obama will get away with murder until he's defeated by the second coming of Christ. And Simpson was released from jail in Las Vegas on the same day as the deadliest mass shooting slaughter in U.S. history, which was in Las Vegas. Incidentally, it was at the Route 91 music festival in Las Vegas. And in the famous car chase with O.J. Simpson, he drove down Route 91 in California. Obama became the president in 2009, and he was and by the way, also, the shooting was from the 32nd floor. Simpson wore jersey number 32. All right, and on and on. Obama became the president in 2009, and he was, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the shooter from the Mandalay Hotel shot down at the music festival on the ground level in the adjacent lot. Okay? Obama became the president, and that's the relevant to Simpson because he was released from jail after committing murder in the same city, Las Vegas, Sin City. All right. Now, Obama became the president in 2009, and he was the basketball president who wore jersey number 23, which is why God pairs 9 and 23 together in his signs to confirm the signs and connections. And by the way, this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And one simple way in which he would provide a second witness for us, if we think about it, is through pairing certain numbers together. And I know which numbers they are, because I've been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 8 years. They are 9 and 23, and that's because the big picture of signs is all about, you could argue, identifying the Antichrist. Because there's two of them. But primarily Obama. The building blocks, in other words, the building blocks of God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, identify Barack Obama. And that's why those that are, quote, watchers that don't know how the signs are interconnected and are playing the guessing game because they believe, because of their salvation doctrine, that it's not possible to know the identity of the Antichrist, that's why they don't know the big picture of signs and have missed the vast majority of the signs. I mean, like, they know less than 1% of 1% of the prophetic signs. Unfortunately, it is sad, but it's their own fault in a way for following the false doctrine of Reformed theology. Once saved, always saved. That leads to this interpretation of the Holy Spirit and the identity of the Antichrist not being possible to know. Very, very sad. Jesus hates this doctrine. He calls it Nicolaitan twice. And he's coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. And if you've been following that doctrine, you are not in a position to be, I guess, knowing God's big picture of signs. Or at least the majority of it. And everything that I've just said that is controversial is case closed once this prediction comes to pass. Make no mistake, I know more than you the purpose of this prediction. And it is to prove everything that I've just said. It's really not controversial, but it is. I know it is for some people. In fact, for most quote-unquote Christians, this is controversial. But that's because they haven't heard properly the other arguments. They've blinded themselves, following blindly their Nicolaitan leaders. I mean, the Christian world today is dominated by Reformed theology and Calvinists. Everywhere on YouTube, essentially. And it's designed like that, I guess you could say, by Satan and by God to weed out God's special ones that can take the time to listen to the other arguments. It's the same with like people on the left. They never hear the conservative argument. A conservative is a former liberal that got to hear the actual conservative arguments to issues and then changed their mind because they finally heard the argument properly. And so don't be like them. If you consider yourself to be a Christian, but you are still a Reformed theologian or subscribe to that sort of thinking. Dispensationalism, once saved, always saved, etc. Okay, so let's move on. So we got some fascinating things going on here. I'm talking about the coup in Argentina and how it's pointing to Obama and the coming genocide in America. Now, Obama arrived in Argentina on March 23rd in 2016, exactly 6 + 6 + 6 months, which hints at the Antichrist, before the big Revelation 12 chapter sign in the night sky on 9/23, as in the pairing of 9 and 23 in 2017. And this sign in the sky that's described in the book of Revelation chapter 12 represents the escape of God's faithful from the coming slaughter from the Antichrist. Now, if you're one of those quote-unquote Christians that knew of the talk about the Revelation sign in September 17 but dismissed it because of the propaganda and the lies, well, now you know the truth. Because this prediction, like I'm saying, will prove the controversial things. And by the way, there are only 2 signs in the Bible that are called great. This is the great sign in heaven. And it occurred on a specific date. If you didn't know this, and you are a quote-unquote Christian, well, obviously the thing you want to do after watching this video is look into it. I mean, I did make a video about it way back in 2016, but that channel was cancel cultured for speaking too much truth. I may post that video again at some point, but there's tons of information on the internet regarding this Revelation 12 sign. So, in turn, the Revelation 12 sign on 9/23 and 17 was 92 weeks and 3 days. Another 9 and 23 pairing from the date 9/23, no less, before the path of totality of a solar eclipse that passed over Argentina, that terminated precisely at Buenos Aires, the capital city where the coup took place. Let me see that date. Wait a second. That date was July 2nd, and here I am in a video talking about the date July 2nd. If I'm not mistaken, that date was July 2nd, and that year was, if I'm not mistaken, 2019, which makes that exactly 7 years ago. And that's crazy, because 7 years in Bible prophecy is symbolic of the end times and the period of the Antichrist, who is from Buenos Aires, whose number is 13. So the solar eclipse that pointed to the Antichrist on July 2nd, 2019, is exactly 7 years before this predicted 13% drop in the stock market on July 2nd, 2026, 7 years later exactly. A 13% drop, again, hints at the Antichrist, because this Antichrist is described in the 13th chapter of the Bible, of the Revelation. But you know what? Hold on a second, because it's predicted that Pope Francis will be resurrected on the 2nd of the month of May in 2029. And that will be from July 2nd this year. That will be 34 months. So, well, anyway, that's 2 times 17 months. And the flood judgment began on the date 2/17. I'll have to think about this some more, but that may be it right there. And the 7 years is 84, so 84 months. And so, and incidentally, 84 is the equivalent of the name Obama in Hebrew gematria. So that gives us the two antichrists, but 84 plus 34 is 118. Anyway, it's not necessary to connect the eclipse to May 2nd, because it connects with 7 years to this predicted drop in the stock market, which is a prophetic 2 times 17 months to the predicted resurrection of Pope Francis. And the flood is relevant to this resurrection of Pope Francis, come to think of it, because the flood, as described in Genesis chapter 6, is the result of the sons of God, the fallen angels, mixing with man. And the fallen angels will pretend to be aliens and claim to be here to help us with the things that Pope Francis was concerned about, which is the climate and nuclear weapons. And that's why they'll resurrect Francis and claim that he is the ambassador for the world, making him the world leader and Antichrist overnight. And so it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. What can I say? It's really amazing for me to learn this, because I had almost even forgotten. I mean, probably at the time when I wrote this in 2024 in April, at that time I'd probably almost forgotten about that eclipse. But I certainly haven't thought about that eclipse since May or April of 2024, which was, more than 2 years ago. So, I mean, But anyway, thinking about it, now you can see how all those years ago, the relevance of that sign. There's more to that sign. I mean, that involved the eclipse that went over the astronomy laboratory in Chile that's owned by the Catholic Church, if I'm not mistaken. And the Catholic Church is all about aliens because the truth is about Catholicism, like I've been explaining, it's really demonic. And that's why the Catholic Church will be all about the aliens when they arrive, because really the Catholic Church, those up in the hierarchy, are in touch with the demons, and they have been informing them about the coming aliens, which are in reality demons. Oh, right. Yeah, they're... yeah, what can I tell you? All right, now, in the Bible, a 30-year period is symbolic of a king. Obama's autobiography book that identified... I just want to emphasize again, the day that Obama was in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, was exactly 6 + 6 + 6 months before the Revelation 12 sign on the date 9/23, which was 92 weeks and 3 days before the eclipse in Buenos Aires. That's Obama and Obama. Obama, the Antichrist, 666, and then Obama's numbers, like I explained, 9 and 23, gets us to the eclipse that terminated precisely at Buenos Aires after passing over the prophetic location of the observatory. All right. In the Bible, a 30-year period is symbolic of a king. Obama's autobiography book that identified him as the Antichrist king, Dreams from My Father, was released exactly 29 years before it is predicted that the... Okay, we're going to skip this paragraph because this was a step in the trail of science. All right. Obama, but I do need to get into this here, though. There was this deadliest massacre in Argentina on July 18th, 94, which was exactly 4 + 4 + 4 months before Obama released his autobiography book that identified him as the Antichrist king. Okay. The July 18th, 95 and July 18th, 94. Now, in the massacre in Argentina, 85 people were killed in a terrorist bombing that targeted a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires. God's people, okay? 85 people were killed. A year later, exactly, which is 4 + 4 + 4 months, which hints at the 44th president, Obama, the 44th president, released his autobiography, Dreams from My Father, or Dreams of My Father. And that was just after he had moved to Chicago in the year 85. Which is why, by the way, the 85 Chicago Bears are so prophetic. So he first entered politics in Chicago in 85. That's why 85 people were killed exactly 4 + 4 + 4 months before his autobiography. Now, the deadliest massacre in Argentina was exactly 30 years. Yeah, forget that exact 30 years bit. We'll have to follow up on this because I'm sure there's something going on here that hasn't fully been discovered. Now, Barack Obama is predicted to become, now, okay, this was before this, so he's going to be the 50th president. That's why he's from the 50th state, for example. It's symbolic of the completion of America, the last president, the last state, okay? And I think I'm going to skip this paragraph here. But no, I can't, because here we talk about Lionel Messi, which was the whole purpose of this, of going into all of this. So anyway, Harrison Ford. So Obama is going to become the president again after a predicted plane crash involving Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, who are predicted to be the two running mates in the 2028 presidential election. They'll be on a plane from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles that will crash as it passes over St. Louis. In fact, it's predicted to crash in St. Louis into Busch Stadium. It'll be a burning bush in the area code 314, and in Exodus 3:14 is the burning bush. Now, so in an emergency, long story short, Harris will be replaced and Newsom will be replaced by Michelle and Barack Obama. The Democrat Party will do this in an emergency. Barack Obama will run as the vice president. And then Michelle will step down in June of 2029. Now, what I want to get at here, though, first of all, Harrison Ford is known for his aviation mishaps. Long story short, and the date of the first episode of the TV series 1923 in which he starred was a prophetic aviation mishap on that same date due to turbulence that involved a passenger plane that departed from the 48th state. Well, anyway, that plane encountered turbulence. And on the same day, though, Obama tweeted his congratulations to Argentina and the GOAT of soccer for winning the World Cup. His tweet was a prophetic sign that identified him as a murderous dictator and the GOAT Antichrist because of what I explained. Him going on the anniversary of the coup that was politicized, just like Obama will lead. Now, God's mysterious transcendental number that he has baked into his creation is pi, 3.14. St. Louis is the area code 314. His tweet about the GOAT of Argentina received 314,000 likes. And it was made exactly 341 months after the deadliest terrorist massacre in Argentine history. Okay, so what do you make of that? It's an exact 341 months. God's using this combinations of 3, 4, and 1 all over his signs, all right? So that's enough, really. But the thing, too, is that his tweet was not only on the anniversary, but it received 314,000 likes. And the tweet is about Argentina. The Antichrist tweeted about Argentina, and God is demonstrating that Obama is connected to Argentina because of the political genocide in Argentina and the coup. All right, now the GOAT of soccer's name is Lionel Messi. The name Messi means messenger, and the name Lionel means young lion. It is in a chapter in the book of Isaiah that the Antichrist is described, as well as a description of the Lord returning to fight for his holy mountain, Mount Zion in Jerusalem, like a young lion. And this verse is Isaiah 31:4. This is one reason why God is combining these 1, 3, and 4s together, okay? So this is the second witness right here, Isaiah 31:4, because of the soccer player's name, which means young lion. And Messi means messenger. But it also, of course, hints at Messiah, which is what is referenced here when God is saying he will return to Mount Zion like a young lion and fight for it. That's where the Messiah Lord Jesus Christ is expected to return when he returns. Mount Zion. So this is why the Goat Antichrist's tweet to Lionel, Young Lion, received 314,000 likes, Isaiah 31:4, and was made exactly 341 months, Isaiah 31:4, after the deadliest terrorist massacre in Argentina that targeted Jews. Approximately 30,000 political opponents were killed in the massacre during what is called the Dirty War, the period of the military juntas in Argentina that began with a coup in 76. Of those who were killed, a significantly disproportionate number of Jews were Jews compared to the percentage of Jews in the Argentine population. 1,900 Jews were killed. The 1989 movie Field of Dreams, which starred James Earl Jones, is about the 1919 Chicago Black Sox World Series cheating scandal. To open the 1989 World Series, Jones read the seventh commissioner's poem. And the first commissioner of baseball was given unchecked power over every person in baseball as a result of the 1919 Chicago Black Sox World Series cheating scandal. And this is symbolic of the Antichrist being given unchecked power over every person in America. The first commissioner of baseball came to power exactly 666 days after the 18th Amendment was ratified, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6, which is why the 666 days connection. The 18th Amendment was about the restriction on buying and selling alcohol, which was incidentally repealed with the 19th Amendment. And that's what we were talking about here, this number 19, because of the 1,900 Jews that were killed. And the 1919 Chicago Black Sox World Series cheating scandal, which led to the commissioner coming to power 666 days after the 6 plus 6 plus 6th Amendment. The restriction on buying and selling food is a parallel or symbolic of the restriction on buying and selling food described in Bible prophecy in the book of Revelation, which is how the left, led by Obama, will conduct the majority of their politicide against the political dissidents who will refuse to take the shot, the SHOT, the INJECTION, which is the mark of the Antichrist, described in Bible prophecy, which says that if one takes it, they'll go to hell. So, and I'll just add this, the mark of the Antichrist was past tense, the CVD disease thing. And you know what I'm talking about. The CVD disease thing was not a supposed precursor to the mark of the Antichrist. It was the mark of the Antichrist in its current form. It did not need an additional something to go with it, such as an additional technology or false form of religious worship. For those who are wise, it did come with a false form of religious worship. And it does not need a supposed new age of dispensation after supposedly all quote-unquote Christians will be raptured. In fact, one of the main reasons why the vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist is it is in fact judgment for this particular doctrine. the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day that Jesus said he hates. He's coming to make war with the sword of his mouth and those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine, which is free grace, or once saved, always saved, comes in the package of dispensationalism, or sovereign grace, which comes in the package of Calvinism. Things like our righteousness is as filthy rags, one verse that Luther took out of context, twisted, and developed to support his entire theology. Incidentally, Luther wanted to remove the book of Revelation from the Bible, along with other books like the book of James, because they contradict his doctrine. Luther was not such the great guy that all of the Calvinist propagandists say he was. Calvin, incidentally, titled his writings Systematic Augustinianism. Luther was an Augustinian monk. And Calvin disparaged all the other early church fathers and only quoted Augustine. He was an Augustine fanatic. Augustine had some all right writings in his beginning of his career, but he corrupted the Western church with his latter writings. And that's the history of Reformed theology. I mean, the Protestant Reformation was really a revivification of Augustinianism through Luther and Calvin, and a corruption of the church. They did away with one corruption and replaced it with another, which is how it would work. I mean, that's God's prerogative and Satan's prerogative. God allows Satan to do what he does. Is to fool the masses, the followers, the ones that don't look into it themselves. So anyway, I went off track. And by the way, everything that I've just explained is fact, zero debate when this prediction comes to pass, which is why I took the time to go off on that tangent, because I'm in the midst of making this video that will prove everything that I've just said. Now back to the subject. So we have the connection here with the 1900 Jews, okay? But in 1989, there was this movie about the 1919 Black Sox World Series cheating scandal, all right? And Field of Dreams was released on May 5th, 89, exactly 1900 days. And again, the movie is about the 1919 scandal. Before the terrorist bombing at the Jewish Community Center in Argentina, and it was 1,900 Jews who were killed in Argentina during the Dirty War. The Argentine Jewish Community Center bombing was in turn exactly 4 + 4 + 4 months before the release of the 44th president's Dreams from My Father, which is about, the actual prophetic dream in the book clearly identifies, for those who have some Holy Spirit, Obama as the Antichrist and his father being Satan. It's clear. You may look into that dream that Obama wrote about, well, supposedly, and even narrated in the audiobook, right? So Field of Dreams about the 1919 cheating scandal was released 1,900 days and then 4 + 4 + 4 months before the release of Dreams from My Father. Field of Dreams, Dreams of My Father. Incidentally, 19 is also the 4 + 4th prime number. All right, and so I just want to throw that in there, I guess. It identifies Obama, and that's why the 1,900 Jews. The Bama in Hebrew is a proper noun that means high place in the Bible. In the Bible, high place is a metaphor for heaven. In Luke 10:18, Jesus said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. In Hebrew, Barack Obama means lightning from heaven. The word Bama is H1117 in Strong's Concordance. Because Barack means lightning, Bama means high place, a metaphor for heaven, and O in the language Jesus would have spoken, Aramaic, is the word for from. And so Barack Obama means lightning from heaven. Either Jesus didn't know what he was saying when he said this, when he said he saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven, or he knew what he was saying and knew that it would confuse us because there would be a famous president named Barack Obama, or he was revealing the identity of the Antichrist. Obviously, the latter option is the only one that makes any sense. And if you hadn't happened to have heard of that explanation before, but yet continued to play the Antichrist guessing game because of the stubborn belief of the salvation doctrine you have for 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and the identity not being possible to know, I don't know how you did that because it's so obvious. I mean, Barack Obama means lightning from heaven. And so obviously Jesus was identifying the Antichrist. I don't know what you were thinking. But anyway, the word Bama is H1117 in Strong's Concordance. As well, the Antichrist is described in Zechariah 11:17. On the date 11:17 in 2018, there was a prophetic sign involving the discovery of the missing Argentine submarine, in which 44 sailors were lost. Known colloquially in Argentina as the 44. This submarine incident. Many nations of the world cooperated in the search for the submarine and the lost 44 sailors, which hinted at the 44th President Antichrist leading the nations. In God's signs, Argentina is symbolic of a coup d'etat of the democratically elected government, just like the left did in the year 2020. The Argentine submarine sign on 11:17, and by the way, when this prediction comes to pass, it'll prove what I just said. There is no debate. If you were somehow still not knowing that, now you know. I mean, the evidence was overwhelming. You just didn't care to look into it, and you believed the propagandist left media. And so you're to blame. In fact, it's more than that. If you are on the left and you didn't know that, it's because you wanted to not believe that. You loved the lies. You loved the lies. And that's ultimately spiritual. The truth is you love the lies from Satan. There's two types of people. Those who hate evil and those who hate evil. And that's the left today. And the spiritual truth behind the derangement syndrome of anti-Trump is that Trump is God's trumpet that he is using to trumpet his prophetic signs. And God has designed it to stir up the pot, to poke the cockroach nest. It's to the wasp's nest. It's to get it's purposeful. The intention from God is to get you excited, to love the lie, which is everything the left says about Trump and whatever the issue is. And to not believe the truth coming out of Trump's mouth because it comes out of Trump's mouth. I mean, it's truly deranged, but it's spiritual. And so anyway, my point is that if you were gobbling up the left media regarding the shoplifted referendum in the year 2020, It's spiritually because you loved the lies. And you are in league with Satan. And I'm trying to help you. You refused because you were morally superior. You were better. You thought you were better than me. You thought you were better than other conservatives who were trying to tell you the truth about what happened. And you believed the propaganda about, for example, Giuliani, and you thought of him as the bad guy, even though he was a gift to this country and a truly righteous, good man. But the propaganda, you loved it. So you've been brainwashed to, for example, think of Giuliani as a crazy. I mean, it's absurd, right? If you actually know Giuliani and listen to him, and he even has a podcast if you ever wanted to listen to him. But no, you won't, of course. You won't even spend 5 minutes because you love the lies. You're going to hell. But hopefully this prediction will wake you up. Okay, so now, as I was saying, we've got the pattern of 11 and 17 here to confirm that Obama is the Antichrist, right? Now, there was also this date, 11/17 in 2018. By the way, Obama's autobiography, his other one, A Promised Land, which is a direct reference to the Bible because he's the Antichrist. Anyway, that was released also on the date 11/17. And anyway, we have the submarine sign on the date 11/17 here. And yeah, Argentina is symbolic of the coup d'etat of the democratically elected government. Now, the Argentine submarine sign on this date, which hinted at Obama, and it kind of was a high place because, sinking to the bottom of the ocean is coming down from a high place, like falling like lightning from heaven. It's kind of a falling thing, right? It fell from the surface of the ocean to the bottom. Okay, and that was in 2018. It was exactly 1 year, 11 months, and 17 days. Another 11/17. Before the Obama regime operatives within the government cheated and shoplifted the referendum on November 3rd, 2020. And that's all tied into, as I've been explaining here, well, never mind. So anyway, it's 1 year, 11 months, and 17 days from the Argentine submarine sign on the date 11/17. I think you get my point, is that this connection is for a reason, because Argentina is symbolic of the coup, and that's exactly what happened on November 3rd. Okay, and furthermore, 11/17 is all about the high place, but falling from the high place, which is what the submarine did. I don't think it could be any more clear. So, in other words, not only is this paragraph and this story I've been telling in these last few paragraphs proof that the referendum was shoplifted, but if that wasn't enough for you, okay, fine. This prediction will prove everything, okay? But when the prediction comes to pass, if you weren't convinced by this paragraph, you should know that there is zero debate regarding the matter, okay? You were brainwashed. Just admit it. It's fine. Everyone needs to wake up at some point, including myself. There was a time where I didn't know the truth about the God of the Bible. I had to wake up as well. Everyone has their moment, okay? Nothing to be ashamed of. Okay, but now is the time, because you are running out of time. And the consequences are dire. There are consequences if you choose to block out what I'm saying to you right now. You are on the wrong side of history if you actually didn't know that the referendum was shoplifted. Okay? I don't care whatever you heard on the news. whatever excuse or explanation you think tells you that no, all the conservatives are wrong, etc. By the way, there's even polls done where there's a majority of Democrats, or like a good percentage of them, I think it's a majority, that actually know that the referendum was not legit. It's not like the media and the Democrats are even fooling all of the Democrats. Okay? But if you were one of the Democrats that refused to, that loved the lies, well, now you know to stop loving the lies. Because really what you're doing is you're loving the lies from Satan. That's the spiritual truth. Hopefully this prediction makes that clear for you. So now back to the story about what happened on June 22nd. So that was just a brief, well, not brief, but an interlude here. We're going to return to the story here. Now, again, it was the day that Clive Davis died. He managed the duo Loggins and Messina, the famous duo Loggins and Messina, which hints at Lionel Messi, who scored his record 6+6+6th goal. And God uses records for signs. And he also uses the goats for signs. He's the goat of soccer, right? So, now this is from Wikipedia. When our first album, Sittin' In, came out, we started receiving a lot of excitement about the music and good ideas, unquote. Messina recalled in 2005. We had a choice. It was either I now go on and continue to produce him and we do the solo career, or we stay together and let this work. For me, I did not desire to go back out on the road. I had had enough of that and I wanted to produce records. But Clive Davis, then president of the record company, intervened and said, you know, I think you'd be making a mistake if you guys didn't take this opportunity. Things like this only happen once in a lifetime. It may merit you sleeping on it overnight and making a decision that will be in your best interest. He was absolutely correct. Kenny made the decision as well. It delayed his solo career, but it gave him an opportunity, I think, to have one. Okay? So there's Clive Davis's involvement in the careers of Loggins and Messina. The duo likely hints at Francis and Obama, the Antichrist duo. During the next decade, Loggins became known as the king of the movie soundtrack. God is using these kings signs to hint at the Antichrist kings. And, of course, the King of Kings, Jesus Christ. So he was the king of movie soundtrack after recording multiple successful songs for films, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Evidence that Loggins and Messina hint at Francis and Obama is that Clive Davis died on the day of the Argentinians' record 6+6+6th goal in the World Cup held in America. Because America is the center of the world. I mean, it's God's Gentile nation, but also the Antichrist, for that reason, is or will be a president of America. Anyway, the World Cup, this is the Antichrist system alluded to here. Now, in the year 13, at age 40+40, Clive Davis publicly came out as bisexual in his autobiography, The Soundtrack of My Life. On the daytime talk show, Katie, he told host Katie Couric that he hoped his coming out would lead to, quote, greater understanding, unquote, of bisexuality. Obama is the bisexual 44th president. That's a fact. Okay, I'm not just saying that because it's one thing here. It's because of God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel and will be proven to be true when this prediction comes to pass. And therefore, it will be proven to be true that Obama is bisexual. And it's a fact. I don't care to explain anything more to elaborate and prove that to you right now. The interview was 4+4 days after lightning struck the Vatican twice, after Benedict the 4x4 resigned, which proves that also Pope Francis is homosexual, or if not bisexual. 6/22, this June 22nd date, in which Lionel Messi scored the 6+6+6 goal, record setting, is 6+6+6 prime number of weeks, 61 weeks, after Pope Francis died. Another confirmation. Clive Davis was a music industry star maker. He passed away on the same day as Keir Starmer announced his resignation. Alan Greenspan was the 13th chairman of the Federal Reserve. Alan Greenspan was born on March 6, 1926, which was exactly 36,633 before June 22nd. Okay, so the date 36, followed by these 3 and 6 number here, okay, which hints at 36 is 666. And again, this day, June 22nd, the day Messi scored a 6+6+6 goal, 6+6+6, the prime number of weeks after Pope Francis died. Okay. So this March 3rd, 2026, March 6, 2026 was the 23rd, Greenspan, born on March 6, 1990. Alan Greenspan, born on March 6, 1926, was the 23rd prime number of years before March 6, 2009, when the S&P bottomed after the crash of 2008 exactly at 666 points. The secular news even remarked on this remarkability. And it was the crash that Alan Greenspan facilitated. March 6, 2009 was 9 + 9 + 9 weeks exactly, and God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. 23 is the 9th prime number. The number 9 is the most important number in God's prophetic signs. It's from the Bible. It symbolizes God's judgment. And that gets us to the day that number 23, Michael Jordan, was inducted into the Hall of Fame. What was the prophetic aspect again? I forget. He cried. Okay. Anyway, March 6th, 2009 was the 9th. It lines with something, but I forget what it is. But anyway, March 6th was also the 9th triangular number of days after, which is 45 days after player number 45. Jordan also wore 45 briefly for 23 days, 23 games, I should say, after Obama's inauguration in the year 2009. These 9s and the 23rd prime number of years from Greenspan are a pairing of 9 and 23, which confirms the signs and connections, as I explained earlier. Jordan, on 9/11 in 2009, when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame and cried, but I forget the relevance of that, is relevant because of this day. On this day also, the Dow closed at 9,605.41. Exactly 4 + 4 years after 9/11, when the Dow was closed at 9,605.51. And the media commented on the uncanny coincidence of that as well. The number 10, which is what it hints at, the difference of 0.10, is the number that symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist. Because the Roman numeral X, which symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist, is the number 10. Now, Greenspan died, I'm jumping ahead, but he died 10 days before the predicted crash. Okay, he also died 9 + 11 days after the GameStop sign on June 2nd, which was the peak, and was known to be the peak on that day because of this sign. Greenspan's tenure as the 13th chair of the Federal Reserve and his death at 100 hint at a 13% drop in the stock market, right? 13 and 100. 13 out of 100 is 13%. Similar to Chamberlain, number 13's 100-point game. The most points scored in the game was scored by number 13, which is part of this pattern of signs that God has been using here to point to a 13% drop in the stock market, because basketball points are dropped points in basketball, which hinted at the dropped points of the stock market. If Greenspan points to Jordan number 23 through the 23rd prime number of years from his birth, the date July 15th is 23 days after his death. That's the date it's predicted that the mission to extract the nuclear dust from Iran will begin, and maybe there will be a 13% drop in the stock market on that day also. There may be 2 days on which there will be a 13% drop. Also, July 15th is 13 days after July 2nd, so it is possible that July 2nd will be a step in the trail of signs that is leading to the date that it was predicted that there will be a 13% drop in the stock market. In which case, on July 2nd, we can expect clear and relevant signs to all of this. Greenspan oversaw the NASDAQ stock bubble. He died 6 plus 6 plus 6 days after the death of NASCAR stock car driver Ned Jarrett on the date 6/4. Okay. Disenchanted with the previous label, Capital, Pink Floyd and their manager negotiated a new deal with Clive Davis. The Dark Side of the Moon was the final album the band was obligated to release under their old contract, but Davis successfully courted them, bringing them into the Columbia fold immediately before the album's iconic release. Recognizing the band's impending masterpiece, CBS heavily promoted the album, issuing the song Money as a single in May 1973. From the Pink Floyd guitar sale thread, this is another prophetic email thread. Pink Floyd's Money was their first hit in the US, and it reached number 13 on the Billboard 100, as in 13%, or 13 out of 100. And the song is called Money. Clive Davis was heavily involved in this album and song Money. Clive Davis died 10 days before the predicted 13% drop. On the day that Alan Greenspan died, Greenspan itself, the name, hints at the greenback, which is money. This might be interesting. I looked up the time between Greenspan's birth and Ned Jarrett's birth. It is 6 years, 7 months, and 6 days. It was almost the perfect 666 connection. I then searched for any notable figures who were born the month after Greenspan. Alexander Butterfield on April 6th, 1926. From 1969 to 1973, Butterfield served as deputy assistant to President Richard Nixon. On July 13, 1973, during the Watergate investigation, he revealed the existence of Nixon's White House taping system. That makes him pretty relevant in history. Now, Watergate is symbolic of the floodgates opening and the crash, as in the stock market crash. Butterfield died at the age of 99 on March 9th this year, which was 3 months and 13 days to June 22nd, when Alan Greenspan died. 3 divided by 13 is equal to 0.230, making this 99 and this 23 a pairing of 9 and 23 that confirms the signs and connections. Greenspan equals the Fed, the Federal Reserve, which equals interest rates, which equals 10-year treasuries. Greenspan died 10 days before July 2nd, and a predicted 13% drop. He also died at 100, which seems to hint at 10. I'm not surprised at all that God was saving the timing of Greenspan's death right before the big crash. The, quote, Greenspan conundrum, unquote, refers to a puzzling economic event in 2004 and 2005 when long-term interest rates surprisingly fell, even though the Federal Reserve was raising short-term interest rates. This confused experts, as higher short-term rates usually cause long-term rates to rise alongside them. The setup normally when the Federal Reserve raises its benchmark interest rate, banks and financial markets pass these costs on to consumers. This makes borrowing for homes and businesses more expensive, which slows down the economy to prevent inflation. What happened between mid-2004 and late 2005, the Federal Reserve aggressively raised the fund rate from 1 to 4.25%. The expectation, long-term interest rates like the 10-year Treasury yield should have climbed as well. The reality, long-term rates barely budged and even briefly fell. Because long-term rates dictate things like mortgage costs, borrowing remained cheap and the economy kept booming. Why it was a conundrum, then Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan famously called it this a conundrum, quote unquote, because it broke traditional economic rules. The Fed lost its ability to easily control long-term borrowing, which reduced its power to cool down specific sectors like the housing market. Now, the point of us saying all this is just to point out the connection between Alan Greenspan, interest rates, and the 10-year Treasury yield. This paragraph was actually, although mainstream theory regarding how markets work, it's actually false. But that's a whole other subject. But the truth is that the Federal Reserve does not control interest rates. Market forces, or rather mass social psychology does, because mass social psychology is what in fact controls markets. And these things, and the Federal Reserve is only a follower. Okay? The Fed can do whatever it wants, but it is forced to do what it does to follow. After Greenspan raised it to 4.25, guess what happened? The deflationary crisis happened, and the Fed was forced to reduce it all the way back to zero. In just right after this. So the Fed is just a follower, and it cannot affect the long-term interest rates because this whole theory is bogus. Okay? But this is something that most people don't know. Anyway, that's another subject. Wow. Okay, now I just checked if any notable figures were born the month before Ned Jarrett. Actress Kim Hamilton. On September 12th, 1932. Hamilton's early film credits include the 1959 film noir Odds Against Tomorrow opposite Harry Belafonte and The Leech Woman, okay, blah, blah, blah. She is one of the first African-American actors to appear on the soap opera Days of Our Lives and was the only African-American to appear in a speaking role on Leave It to Beaver. She reportedly died on September 16th, 2013, which was exactly 666 weeks before June 22nd. So something's going on here, right? She died exactly 666 weeks before Clive Davis and Alan Greenspan on June 22nd. So Hamilton was born 6 years, 6 months, and 6 days after Alan Greenspan, and she died exactly 666 weeks before Alan Greenspan. Why is that? Well, Alexander Butterfield was born 6 years, 6 months, and 6 days before Ned Jarrett, who died 6 plus 6 plus 6 days before Alan Greenspan. Something's going on. And what it is Alexander Hamilton. Okay? Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton was the first Secretary of Treasury. Greenspan, conundrum equals 10-year treasuries. Greenspan died 10 days before the predicted crash on July 2nd. Oh, Alexander Hamilton is on the $10 bill, 10 exclamation marks, which hints at 10 days from Alan Greenspan's death. And Greenspan hints at greenback and money, as in the $10 bill. But of course, the Secretary of Treasury is somewhat akin to the chair of the Federal Reserve. And furthermore, he was the first, which also hints at 10. But it's just amazing. He was on the $10 bill, and it's Alan Greenspan we're talking about. And we have these historic figures Butterfield and Hamilton connecting with the 666s to Greenspan, to Greenspan. All right. It's amazing. It's amazing, which confirms everything about the Alexander Hamilton, because it's Alexander Butterfield and Kim Hamilton. There's even more confirmation, actually, because July 2nd will be 6 + 6 + 6 days after Lewis Hamilton won the Barcelona Grand Prix. Prix hints at X, which is symbolic of the mark. And God has demonstrated prior to this that these Formula One race cars hint at fuel injection, as in the mark of the Antichrist, which is 666, because the injection is the mark of the Antichrist. Now, this Grand Prix that he won was the first Formula One that he won for Ferrari. FFF. F is the sixth letter, 666. Fuel injection. Injections are the mark, 666. This July 2nd date will be 6 + 6 + 6 days after Lewis Hamilton won. Now, as I explained in the Lewis Hamilton email and video, why this Lewis Hamilton actually hints at Alexander Hamilton. Okay, now, getting back to Kim Hamilton. She portrayed an uncredited role, Helen Robinson, in the 1960 film adaptation To Kill a Mockingbird, based on Harper Lee's novel of the same name. She was the film's last surviving African-American adult cast member with a speaking role. Michelle Robinson will be the... the wife of the 44th president, but she'll be the president. Anyway, so July 2nd will be 4 times 4 weeks exactly after the sale of the Black Strat, the Pink Floyd guitar, in the auction. Was the auction lot number 4 for the guitar, as I wrote, because I was just vaguely remembering? But yes, it was. So 4 times 4 weeks to auction lot number 4. Now, Christie's auctioned Jim Irsay's collection. It's an amazing thing. He had this vast collection, like the most amazing collection you could say of like 20th century memorabilia in existence. Anyway, it all went to sale in one auction. And anyway, Jim Irsay owned the Indianapolis Colts, and they won the Super Bowl. And in that Super Bowl, the GOAT of kicking, player number 4, won his 4th Super Bowl. Another 4-4, okay? There's more to that. It was the first all-black coach Super Bowl, and it was just like a few days before the first black president announced he was running for president, and on and on. So also, it's another 4 and 13, because Money made it to the 13th on the Billboard, and it's 4 times 4 weeks to the predicted 13% drop in the stock market. And God is pairing these 4s and 13s together regarding this. And what's predicted to come in this same month, which is the sinking of U.S. warships, 4 times 13 equals 52, which is the equivalent of the word ship in simple English gematria, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Also, Jim Irsay of the Indianapolis Colts died on May 21st, 2025, and that was exactly 4 + 4 + 4 months before the death of Kyle Busch, the Indy car driver, on May 21st, 2026, which was 4 times 4 + 4 days to June 22nd. June 22nd was 6 + 6 + 6 years exactly after comedian George Carlin died. All right. I actually had been thinking about, this is my friend now speaking. I actually had been thinking about this earlier in the day. At that time, I was really into George Carlin's material, and I had just seen him with my dad a few months prior to his reported death. George Carlin had a lot of commentary on Wall Street and the corrupt economic system. Alan Greenspan served as federal chair for 6 + 6 + 6 years. Alan Greenspan testified before Congress in 2008, the year Carlin reportedly died. Carlin's final stand-up special was called, quote, "Life is Worth Losing," unquote, as in money, which was his, or points lost in the stock market, which was his 6+6+6th album and 13th HBO special. The opening monologue bit of Life is Worth Losing is called Dumb Americans, which touches on the many themes that could serve as the Occupy Wall Street manifesto in 2011. June 22nd was, this June 22nd, not the one that Carlin died on, was 177 months and 6 days, which is at 1776, which is the thing that God uses in his signs because it symbolizes America, after Occupy Wall Street began on the date 9/17 in 2011. Incidentally, the Antichrist was president from 9 until 2017. He was the unconstitutional president, and that's why the date 9/17 is Constitution Day. Now, this connection of 177 months and 6 days is also 5,393 days, which is the 711th prime number, which hints at the verse in which the flood judgment began in Genesis 7:11. In the year 13, at the age of 40 plus 40, I already went into this. So let's see. Okay, on June 22nd, it was reported that two notable figures, Clive Davis and Alan Greenspan, died, who were born 2,222 days apart. Okay, and on June 22nd, two superstar soccer players, Lionel Messi and Kylian Mbappe, both scored 2 goals to give their teams each 2 straight wins in the World Cup. Mbappe's match, France versus Iraq, took place in the second state of Pennsylvania, in which there was a 2-hour storm delay. French star Kylian Mbappe scored 2 goals, making his World Cup total 16 goals for second place all time, 2 goals behind Messi's 18. Both teams, France and Argentina, have 2 wins with 6 points in the World Cup standings. Clive Davis and Alan Greenspan were 6 years apart in age and born 2,222 days apart. They both died on the 22nd of the month, 6/22. 6/22/2026 is exactly 34 months and 10 days, another 341, before it is predicted that Pope Francis will be resurrected and cloned. Does that hint at a 2? Because why are we having all these 2s here? Besides the duo of the Antichrists, well, there's a Francis Part 2. It's predicted that he not only will be resurrected, but he'll be cloned. Somehow it'll be Pope Francis, but the demons will claim to use his DNA, or they will use his DNA, and regenerate his body. But it'll be the spirit of Pope Francis, okay? It'll actually be Pope Francis in his body. Now, if I recall, in the movie AI, Artificial Intelligence, Steven Spielberg movie, aliens cloned the mother and brought her back to life. Crazy. The mother is played by Frances O'Connor. This is a stunning thing that I just learned today. It just came to me today. I remembered, for some reason, I guess it was the Holy Spirit, but in the movie, the mother is cloned. And she's brought back to life through cloning. Through the lock of hair that was cut off by the mother in the movie. And the aliens do it. That's what made me think about it, because it's the aliens that will clone Francis. And then I thought, wait a second, it was aliens that cloned the mother, just like how aliens will clone Pope Francis. And then I looked it up, and sure enough, the actress's name is Frances. All right, it's just like earlier in the beginning of this video when I looked it up, and the son of Liam Payne is named Bear. Okay, it's like, that's how it works, right? It's amazing. Now, AI is the abbreviation for artificial intelligence because each word has 4 syllables, which gives us 4-4. AI, artificial intelligence, gives us 4-4. Disclosure Day, DD, 4th letter of the alphabet, gives us 4-4. Another alien Spielberg movie. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the climax of the movie, and the movie is all about the location of the climax, if you know the movie, occurs in the 44th state. A critic on YouTube made the case that Jaws was in fact Spielberg's first Aliens movie. Jaws is 4 letters. Jaws equals Jews? Spielberg and Richard Dreyfuss, the main character in the movie Jaws, are Jews. Minority Report, MR 1318, 13th letter, 18th letter, hints at Revelation 13:18. It also hints at Michelle Robinson. By the way, Revelation 13:18 regards the mark of the Antichrist and the number 666. Artificial Intelligence, Francis O'Connor, cloned, resurrected. The movie was released on June 29th, 2001. The 204th super prime number of days, which is 10,169 days, before Pope Francis is predicted to be resurrected or cloned by aliens. So 204, why? Well, 204 is 4 times 51, which hints at the area code for San Francisco, as in Pope Francis, as in San Francisco. The area code is 415. The big Pope Francis sign, for example, on the date 5/19 in 2024 was exactly 415 months after the San Francisco earthquake, the World Series earthquake, in the area code 415. But anyway, that's it for this video. And this is amazing, this video, this prediction. When it comes to pass, it'll prove everything that I've said, and importantly, the controversial things, as I explained earlier. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, make sure you never ever stop sharing the link to this video or another video link from this channel. This is a massive bag of gold. Nothing compares to it. And Jesus warned Christians what would happen to them if they did nothing with their bag of gold. Despite what the once saved, always saved people say, just read Matthew 25. Now, that's it. God bless. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, "Jesus loves you," unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video. And once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more. Don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.